we've decided to start with the Dark Army, which are the Amiga Forces soldiers. And so these are, essentially kind of almost like, a copy of the Nazi soldiers that are going through the Kappa slums and going through people's things and pulling out spies and trying to find Ben. And so we've concentrated on them as the first characters in the collection. And then as we go through our NFT collection, we will then release the resistance soldiers, then the supporting characters, and the main characters. And so you'll get a great narrative journey through the NFTs, telling you about the characters and the story and how they relate to each other. And then these NFTs can then be used in the game or, integrated into the metaverse. And so our partnership, our first Launchpad partnership was with Mintable, and the public mint is on the 1st of October, but the whitelist is on the 30th of September, which is coming up. And so these are the first NFT collection for Retrogression.
Welcome back to Cool Hand Crypto, where cinema, culture, and crypto collide. My name is Matt Silverman, and please remember to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. Today's guest is a veteran actor, director, and unadulterated Web3 pioneer, returning to the show to discuss the launch of the Dark Army NFT collection, which is all a part of the cinematic blockbuster universe called Retrogression. Lots to unpack here, and the limited NFT sale is on September 30th. Here to tell us why you should join the Dark Army, Mr. Anthony Hayes. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me again. Really appreciate it.
Of course, great to see you. We did an interview before,
Yep.
So if you're new to Anthony, you should go back and listen to the first interview where you can get a deeper look at Anthony's background and the project as a whole. But maybe you can give us just a brief filmography, a brief background of who you are and contextually where you're entering Web3 from.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anthony Hayes. I am an actor and a filmmaker. I've been an actor for many years, over 30 years. Films like War Machine with Brad Pitt, Animal Kingdom, The Rover with Rob Pattinson. Just finished shooting the Robbie Williams biopic, Better Man, which was a lot of fun, musical number. And I recently produced, co-wrote and directed a film called Gold starring Zac Efron, which came out this year, a few months ago. A kind of hardcore survival thriller set in the desert. And part of the reason I started this whole ecosystem is the way that film financing is structured, and how there is very little meaningful profit participation for filmmakers in the current model. So my next film project is Retrogression, which is a sci-fi trilogy. And what I want to do is shake up the space with that. And the way we're going to do that is through these NFTs that we'll talk about shortly, which is a way that filmmakers are looking to help finance their productions. The other thing we're doing is we have a streaming service called filmcrib.io, which is an emerging filmmakers platform that you can download the app on Apple Store or on the Google Store, or just go to the website. And that's got about 100 short films from all around the world, Academy Award short films and Cannes winners and things like that. And that's essentially a platform for emerging filmmakers. So what we're doing is we're rolling that out across metaverse partnerships, which we've got some that we're announcing shortly. And so that'll roll out as a virtual cinema chain across the metaverse, and play host to those things, and then eventually play host to the Retrogression sci-fi trilogy. So the way we're kind of changing is through the exhibition and distribution model, and making sure that filmmakers, hold on to their IP. They can get a better deal in the marketplace, and that first dollar that comes from people, renting the film or watching it through our virtual cinema goes back into the ecosystem and back into the filmmakers to then, finance the second and third of the trilogy, and then eventually open it up so that we can then finance other filmmakers on that platform as well, and just give them a far more equitable deal across the board, because one of the issues, and filmmakers know this in particular, with filmmaking, is that when you know sell a film, there's a whole lot of middlemen throughout that process, with sales agents and distributors and exhibitors, and they all need to take their costs and their overheads out of the profits and things like that. And they don't, when you pre-sell a film, for anyone who doesn't know, you don't get that money up front. You have to, as a filmmaker, go to a bank and loan that money and then pay the interest on that money. And then once you deliver the film, then you get to get those checks back in that then go straight back to the bank after all the fees have been taken out. So it's a it's a pretty shonky deal. It's been around for a long time, and we really want to agitate the space and show that there is actually another avenue for exhibition of films. And we can still, and we will still, push retrogression out through theaters, but then we carve out what's called a metaverse window, where straight after the theaters it goes into the metaverse. Our metaverse partners then, their communities have access to the film before it goes onto streamers, before it goes into the rental stores. And then once that window has been executed, then it can go and follow the more traditional path. But what it really is doing is carving out a brand new way of exhibiting films to a new audience, which is fantastic. And so, part of that is creating some IP that has a long simmering relationship between the filmmaker and an audience, through NFTs, firstly, through a play-to-earn game that we're building on Unreal Engine and VR based on the film. So you can essentially take your NFT characters, which are characters from the film, and be the character from the film inside the game based on the film, that eventually then becomes the film itself. And so that's really our kind of revolutionary pathway that we're looking at. And it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of convincing people, because it's there's no real test model in place yet. So we hope to be the first one, and then hopefully that opens it up for all filmmakers to finance their film, hold on to their IP, and meaningfully participate in the spoils of it.
Let's start with Retrogression, the story, the film. It's a trilogy, right? A blockbuster trilogy. So maybe before we enter the Dark Army, can you give us a short description of what this world is? What world are we entering into?
Yeah, the film is set about, in the film, it's set about 350 years after the Great Climate Wars. So it's the world has turned to pop. We haven't heeded the warnings of climate change. We've been greedy little pigs, as humans are, and we've put capitalism in front of the survival of the planet and in front of the human species, as it were. And so this film's set 350 years after that battle. And when that battle took place, 5 armies came together who overthrew the government and formed a new government called Chad, which is the Climate Heroes Against Destruction. And they are now running the world. All currencies have been stripped from the world and replaced with the RTGN token, which is allocated to citizens on Earth based on their carbon footprint. So the lower your carbon emissions, then the more tokens you earn on the blockchain, essentially. And so our lead character is Ben Hammond, and he is the son of the man who designed the whole tracking system to reward people for their for being green. And he is called out to the Amiga base after there's been a terrorist attack on this Amiga military compound. And he's grown up and lived in Alpha City, which is this gleaming, beautiful eco city that's been purpose built to be carbon neutral, and they're constructing all these beautiful carbon neutral buildings. And he's called out to this horrendous other kind of floating city military base. And when he gets there, he realizes that his father's technology has been repurposed to control the masses. And what he uncovers is that the corporations have gotten together with the Chad government, and they are doing illegal kickback schemes to the construction companies who are building these eco-friendly cities, and they're using slave labor on other islands to produce the materials to build these gleaming cities. And his father has escaped from the military compound, and him and his father are the only ones who know how to put the security systems back up because of the terrorist attack to protect this military base. And he finds out that he's actually been brought there to lure out his father out of hiding, so that they can get him back. He ends up escaping from the military compound when the resistance army blow up the convoy that he's been carried in and try to get hold of him because he's this important piece for both sides. And he has to go underground and find his way to his father and to the leader of the Pat army to negotiate with them to take down, take over the system and liberate mankind. But then when he gets there, he's double crossed by the head of the Pat army, who then want to be the new world power. And so we're kind of talking about a few things. We're talking about greenwashing, which is a big thing in this. We've got to be careful about these companies that are saying they're green. For what purposes are they doing it? Is it because Rupert Murdoch, for instance, was all against climate change in all his publications around the world, and then one day it flipped on a dime, and all of a sudden he believes in climate change. And my theory is that the profits of his investments in renewables outweighed the ones he had in coal and gases, and so all of a sudden now we believe in climate change. So it's about greenwashing, but it's also about the cyclical nature of power. And I remember reading this fantastic book years ago called Young Stalin, and it was about Stalin when he was young, when he's a Bolshevik revolutionary, and he was overthrowing the Tsars, and he was for the people. It was this uprising for the people to get rid of the status quo and to have a more equitable situation for everyone. And as things do, he fights his way to a position of power, and then to hold on to that power then turns into one of the greatest monsters the world has ever seen. And so, through the trilogy, we want to explore that about, where you start in an idealistic place to fight against tyranny, and then that you can be corrupted into becoming the very thing that you're fighting against. And if you look back over history, this is what happens. We overthrow a government and then people get addicted to power. So that's essentially the themes of the film. And just a warning, as all good sci-fi is, of taking where we are now, projecting where it could go in the future, and going, let's be careful here about how we tread in the next couple of 100 years. So yeah, it's a big budget thing. It's a 3-part sci-fi trilogy, and we're pretty excited.
We'll cut to the Dark Army trailer in this edit. Do you want to introduce the clip?
Yeah, so this is the clip for the NFTs, which is the first release of the NFTs. So we've decided to start with the Dark Army, which are the Omega Forces soldiers. And so these are, essentially kind of almost like, a copy of the Nazi soldiers that are going through the Kappa slums and going through people's things and pulling out spies and trying to find Ben. And so we've concentrated on them as the first characters in the collection. And then as we go through our NFT collection, we will then release the resistance soldiers, then the supporting characters, and the main characters. And so you'll get a great narrative journey through the NFTs, telling you about the characters and the story and how they relate to each other. And then these NFTs can then be used in the game or, integrated into the metaverse. And so our first Launchpad partnership was with Mintable, and the public mint is on the 1st of October, but the whitelist is on the 30th of September, which is coming up. And so these are the first NFT collection for Retrogression.
You can buy in on September 30th. I love the design of the NFT. Is it the toy box design? Is that the NFT?
Yeah, the characters inside the toy box, so they're, collectible figurines, so you can collect the entire set and eventually have all the characters of the movies in the same way that you have Star Wars. And when we integrate those into the metaverse platforms, it essentially puts it through a D app, and it takes all the attributes that you have. So if you had a 4-star Dark Army guy with this particular weapon, then it takes that metadata across. You can then generate your avatar on that metaverse, which with all those same attributes, and then essentially unbox your character and then walk around in the metaverse as your guy. And so then in the metaverse too, there'll be other NFTs where you can change their helmets and their weapons and things like that, and change the color of things. So there's a lot that you can do in terms of the NFT costume shop and things like that. Um, so yeah, they come as box figurines, and then you take them out and use them, and then you can use them in the game as well. So it's it's pretty cool. I mean, it's mind blowing, really, where we're at. It blows my mind every day when I have conversations, and I'm always learning because the technology out there is crazy, and the ideas that people have are revolutionary. And so every day I have a conversation with people and just go, "Oh, that's an interesting idea. How do we implement that?"
Can you talk a little bit about your strategy in picking September 30th and when you wanted to release, and the tokenomics of how many you want to release? This is something, at the Sherwood project, our project, that we've deliberated it over and over about. And we had a release back, also a limited release back in June. And we're very much in build mode now and kind of keeping our eye on the ecosystem. So what are you and your team thinking as far as general release schedule and the plans for September 30th in the future?
We've been developing these for a while. We've been waiting. The market has been disastrous across the board, for tokens and for NFTs. It's gone down. So we were going to go a few months ago, and then we just looked at the market, talked to Mintable about when they thought was a more opportunistic time to release these, and the sentiment is slowly turning around. We also have our metaverse partnerships, which we need to get the NFTs out before we start integrating into those worlds. So, we have a bit of a roadmap where, we're dealing with quite big metaverse platforms and other companies. So it seemed like as good a time as any. We wanted to get them out before the end of the year because of what's on our roadmap next, and introduce people to it. So there's no particular about the actual date, but it was really about waiting for market sentiment to be a little bit better, and making sure we didn't push everything too far down the road itself, because we do have a community that's been waiting for these for a long time, and you don't want to upset your community because they're your loyal supporters from the beginning. So yeah, that's really the reasoning behind it.
Of course, we also, Luke and I, have talked endlessly about how to connect with our community during build phases and the long stretches of time it takes to build these projects. For the Dark Army, it says that there are 1,500 being released. Is that the total number of NFTs of that kind of NFT, or are there more of that kind of NFT down the line, or what, character-wise, what's the plan?
Yeah, so with Mintable, there's actually 5,050 NFTs of the Dark Army. They come in different colors. They have different ranks. So you've got ranks 1 star through to 5 star. Then you've got a 6 star general, who's General McKinsky, and he's the head of the Dark Army in the film. And so they're different colors, different ranks. They also have different utility and perks to them. So all of them come with beta game testing passes, so you can be the first in to test the games. But there are things like executive producer credits, cameo roles, on-set visits with flights and accommodation paid. There's signed posters, virtual props, real costumes. We wanted to make it as exciting as possible for everyone, so there's something in all those NFTs that people will like. There's Zoom that we're gonna push, and this is the reason we have the film crib too, is that we're gonna show a kind of unprecedented amount of behind the scenes content on the making and the production of the film and deliver that through the film crib, through the metaverse, and through the virtual cinema chain. So there's passes in there that give you live Zoom links to watch the thing being filmed at the time, and a lot of fun stuff. And then on top of that, you can also unbox those characters, walk around, use them as your avatar in our partner metaverses. So you can be the character in the game, in the film. So 5,050 for Mintable. Then we have another partnership after that, which is with Mogul Productions that we announced a couple of months ago. And that's a more limited run. That's the Dark Army in Chrome and Gold and Hologram. And they have different sets of perks and attributes there. And that's targeted more to the filmmaking community specifically because they're a decentralized NFT platform. So this space is really all about partnerships. You need, as a project to grow, you need to integrate into other partnerships, whether that be NFT platforms or whether that be metaverse platforms or blockchain companies and things like that. So that's really the goal, and that's through this bear market that's been tough for everyone. That's the only thing you can do is you just got to work on your partnerships and try and get as many of those as you can, because cross promoting in different communities is really key to your growth. And these metaverses also, it's a new word. No one really knows what it is. No one really knows what it's going to be. But what we do know is that there are billions and billions of dollars being put into this space. And so, we want to be part of that in terms of the film community and show that there is a way for filmmakers to bring content into these places, because metaverse essentially at the moment, is an empty space with some stuff to look at. And there's no real content in there. There are brands that are integrating into the metaverse, and big brands, there's Alfa Romeo and Gucci and all these guys. They're all pouring a lot of money into the metaverse as the future to, get a younger demographic. Adidas is in there, Nike, they're all doing NFTs. They all know that that's where it's headed. And it's up to us, as the Film 3 community to make sure that our content is king, because they need content. You need things to do in a metaverse. Otherwise, it's just an empty virtual space, and they're making a lot of money selling virtual real estate at the moment. There's millions and millions of dollars changing hands. And so, part of our strategy at least is that with our metaverse partners, that we get access to some of that virtual real estate in return for the content that we have on the film and things like that. And that brings more eyes to the filmmakers that are on our platform at the moment, and they get rewarded per views with our native tokens. So the more communities we integrate into, the more people watch it, the more the filmmakers are rewarded. And so it just becomes a big ecosystem where, it helps us, it helps the people who have their content on our platform, and it paves the way, hopefully, for a lot of other filmmakers, so that the metaverse can realize that film can be a very big part of the metaverse. There is a window there to push it if you can cut through all the distribution bullshit and all the exhibition stuff and all the current model that's there. You need to find a way to do that with your IP. Otherwise, you're tied up, in deals that don't allow you to exploit it in the metaverse. So that's why finding finance in these spaces from the metaverses themselves is a really important part of it, because if you find your finance in the traditional model, then they're going to want it to roll out in the traditional model with the same waterfall, and you just lose control over where your film can play. So, it's our job to convince the metaverse that it's a worthy investment to invest in film, so that their communities can have access to great content first, which is exciting.
As you said, content is king.
Yeah.
So how much time are you able to focus on the creative aspects of all of this when you're busy pioneering Web3? I think it's a struggle that Luke and I constantly face. We're filmmakers. We want to get out there and we want to make stuff.
Yeah.
We want to do we want to make films, we want to make content, help artists make their things. similar sort of parallel universe to yours, but we spend a lot of our time just on the bleeding edge of Web3 and figuring out how to connect these dots. So I was wondering if you could talk about sort of that balance.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been trying to do a redraft on retrogression over the last couple of months, and there is very little time to actually do that kind of stuff. And I know what you're saying. I mean, I want to be on the set. I want to be making that thing, and so it's just one of those things. You've got to go one step at a time. It can be frustrating at times. I spend a lot of my time in our community channels and making sure everyone's cool in there, and that takes up a lot of time. So it really is about splitting your focus, finding good people to work with. Once you crack through, once our virtual cinema is live and it is in the metaverse and it is being hosted, and once our game is built and it's in there, then we turn our hand to the film. But what we're doing at the same time, obviously, because it's all tied into the roadmap, is getting deals in place to finance the film, where these financiers don't have to release those funds until we have our A-list actor attached. But these are guarantees that we can take out to the cast and go, these funds are guaranteed, and so we have a go production, we have a green production. But that's all part of also integrating the game and also integrating the platform. So it really is a new space, and as frustrating as it can be, because you want to be making the film, we also knew from the beginning with ours in particular that it was always going to be community building, NFTs, game, film. And once you actually got all those things working, then those ends up helping finance the film as well. Anyway, your community's big enough to support it and to have a great run, theatrical run in your metaverse. So it's tricky. I mean, it's you got to love it. That's for sure. You got to really believe in what you're doing, because there are two different worlds, I feel. There's the people in the crypto world and in the communities that are so used to tokens launching and mooning in 2 minutes. The downside of that is that they moon in 2 minutes and they die in 5. So, but everyone's ready. Everyone's used to things happening really quick, and there's an energy in that place, and and they love it. They're addicted to that energy, like a dopamine hit. But in terms of actual real integration, in terms of an ecosystem and dealing with companies that have got millions of dollars worth of investment and CEOs and boards that things need to be approved by, it's a much slower process to go down that path. It's sustainable in the long term because we'll be around in 10 years, which is what's great. But there's an expectation from the community that things can happen faster than they actually can in the real world. And so that's a challenge too, to go, you got to be patient. We're not here, to flip a quick coin. We're not here to, smash stuff out until it's ready. There's a clear roadmap and a pathway that needs to be in place. Contracts need to be in place. We are in DeFi, but there's still legals. There's still things that need to be done properly, and that takes time. So I'm okay with that, and you would be okay with that because you're a filmmaker and you know that it can take years. I mean, some films can take 7 years to finance before you actually get there. So the patience of a filmmaker is is incredible, but at the same time, you do, people are investing in you, and you need to look after them, and at the same time make sure that they're getting a return on their investment, or that their investment is safe. So there's a lot to do, and I do love it, luckily, and I love it, I think, because it's uncharted territory, and when it's uncharted, then it is a creative endeavor in a sense, whether it's negotiating this or negotiating that, or what. It's all creative. It's a creative financing. It's creative, whatever it is. It's great.
So going back to that patience you mentioned, how do you communicate that with your community? And what's your thoughts? And this is sort of a selfish question here as we figure out how we balance this in our community.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on giving real news, real updates, real opportunities to your community, balancing that with games and treasure hunts and other things that might be fun, but you can only do that for so long?
When we started, we knew there'd be a bit of a gap from when we launched our token to when we got our NFTs out there. And so we did have treasure hunts and we did have things like that. And that was all, but that was all, in a fun way, because it was telling people what the story of the film was and introducing them to what the world is. But yes, eventually you kind of have to switch out of that, and get the big stuff done. It becomes less fun for the community, unfortunately, but you can't spend all your energies on that. We do occasionally, we come up with things that are fun, and but really we're at the point now where our things are so close to materializing that your focus has to be on that. In terms of actually giving the news, this is a tough one. It's a good question, because a lot of people in the DeFi space team up with other DeFi projects. These partnerships are formed very readily and easily, with a handshake over the Telegram or whatever it may be, and that's okay. That's a partnership, and it has value to both parties. When you start getting into dealing with these bigger companies that are outside of DeFi, where you're asking for significant commitments from them, and significant integration into their communities, you can't just go and willy-nilly announce these things. These are deals that we've been working on for months now, and I'd love to be able to drop a few bombs in my Telegram and say, this is the partnership and this is the partnership. But I can't do it. I can't do it legally. I can't, I have to work with these companies and make sure that we're both in a place where we're both happy to proceed and we're both happy to put a press release out. And before you can do that, then all the work has to be done, where you need to all know what we're doing, how we're doing it, together. And that requires a lot of time, because it's not just a handshake partnership. It's actually a real world integration in terms of two companies or ecosystems coming together. So our announcements are far and few between at the moment, and all I can say to my community is, trust me, these things are happening. These are big partnerships that we're dealing with, and these are partnerships that are bigger than what you're probably used to expecting in the DeFi space, and they're long-lasting partnerships that are going to bring enormous value to our ecosystem in terms of utility and in terms of cross-community promotion and building your ecosystem. And that's a challenge. People get shirty, people get impatient. I've had to step back a little bit from the channels. I was in there all day, every day, and eventually you just have to. We've got great mods and admins that run our channels for us and ask the questions, but you have to step back eventually, because it can
you burn out.
I'm always around and I'm always dropping in and things like that, but when we do our news, it's big news, and it's already been worked on for months behind the scenes. So that's the great thing about it. If I do announce something, it's ready to roll, which is much better than announcing something and then it not being ready to roll. And we had that at the beginning, where, and we're all learning in this space too, where we had a partnership with a metaverse, and we announced it. They said, yeah, you can go and announce it to your community, and we weren't ready to integrate yet, and so that then just becomes a promise that you made that has been dragging out for months without being implemented. And in order to implement that particular partnership, we needed to have our NFTs out. They needed to be at a certain place in their roadmap in order to accept, and integrate in the way that we had planned. And you're beholden to their roadmap at the same time. I can't hurry them along; they're doing their own thing. So it's tricky, but But I think as long as you feel that you're making progress, and as long as the wheels are turning behind the scenes, then I mean, we always said from the beginning, ours is buy into the ecosystem and hold tight for a few years. It's gonna be worth it. But people are used to, there's a lot of moon boys.
You may not have a specific answer to this, but where, for the initial launch, where are those funds going? What is that going towards?
The funds for the NFT, some of it goes towards the film, so we can just start building up that thing. Other parts of the fund are going towards the game as well, and towards the rolling out of the virtual cinema chain. So we'll build the cinema chain, and once we have the assets for that, then that can be replicated across all the metaverse partnerships. In terms of the game, that's a little different because one part of the game is built on Unreal Engine, which would be one game because it's specific metaverse partners we have work on Unreal Engine. Another one is VR, so we do a VR version of the game. So funds from that go into building that game. We've also got um, uh, some funds committed for the game as well from other places. So uh, as soon as we reach that target, we can start, after the NFT, start developing the assets for the game and move forward. So it was always for us NFT, game, then film. We do want to start building the film pot, but obviously being a play to earn game, then that generates revenue as well towards the film, and so do the NFTs, and getting that virtual cinema out there as the first real virtual cinema across the metaverse, so that we can host other content. The other thing we'll be doing too in terms of filmmakers is we want to put some money towards financing short films for the platform, new contents, and for the filmmakers that are on there. So we have 100 filmmakers that have put their films on that, and we want to give back to them by allocating some funds to them to make another short. As we said, content's king, so we always have to produce that. Another part of the film crib, which is interesting too, is that we've just started a run of behind the screens interviews there. So we've got filmmakers from all around the world, established filmmakers. We've got Academy Award winning production designers from Cruella, and special effects makeup artists from Aquaman, and Emmy winning sound designers and things like that. So we've got a few on the site at the moment, but every week we're banking more of those to do a big drop of behind the screens. So filmmakers will be able to come to the platform and hear from the best of the world doing, the best films and TV productions, from Moon Knight to, all the stuff we love, and actually hear these people speak about their careers and their craft. So again, that's content, that we create. That's a cheaper way to make content. That's engaging because they're just Zoom interviews, but they're a great resource for filmmakers as well. So, the money, has to be allocated to so many different places, and so you got to, work out where's the best place to put it now to move to the next stage, and that's part of the puzzle.
I have about 15,000 questions, but I'm cognizant of your
No,
time,
you're
and,
good.
and
You're
this
good.
project has so many arms and legs that I think you'll just have to come back on the show as we progress down the Web3 timeline. But is there anything that you continually get questions on that people don't understand or they can't figure out, or anything people should know regarding the NFT sale on the 30th?
Yeah, the NFT sale's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you have a whitelist, then that's on the 30th of September. So you'll be able to go to the Mintable page. If you follow us on our socials, then we'll remind you of that, or you can follow Mintable on their socials. I've got an AMA with them shortly in a couple of hours as well. So there's a few of them around. If you have a whitelist, you'll be able to mint first. The one exciting thing about this is that it's a blind mint, so you won't know what you're getting. All of them are the same price. There are different rarities, and I went through the different perks and things that there are with them. Then on the 1st of October, it'll be the public mint, so anyone can get in then. Then there's going to be a 48-hour period where we don't reveal what you have. So you're free to either hold on to it, not knowing what you have, or trade it on the secondary market before you know what you have. But then you might give away a really rare one, but then you might give away another one for more money than you paid. So that's a bit of fun as well. And then once they're live, then pretty soon after that, you'll be able to see some integration into the first metaverse. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of a mint. It's a bit of fun, but I just can't wait to see everyone have their things, and people in our community say, "I got the cameo roll," or "I got this," or "I got that," and the people are going to want to swap depending on what they have, or have another crack at it. So what you want to get is the 6-star general. There's only 10 of each color of those, where there's 100 of the other ones. They're all individually numbered, but there's only 10 of General McKinsky, and he's the badass. So you want him. He's like having the Darth Vader of Star Wars. You want the first run of that guy. Yeah, and then as we go on, there'll be other characters. So you'll have the Dark Army, then you can be the Resistance soldiers. Oh, and one other thing which is cool. Is we're working on a partnership at the moment with a 3D scanning company. So once we cast the film, when we do the supporting and the lead characters, we're going to put the actual actor in a 3D scanner and then create the NFTs in the box of the actual actor. So whoever that may be, you'll actually have the actor in a box as a collectible, which is really cool. So there's heaps of fun stuff you can integrate, and that's another one of them.
I'm such a big fan of you, of your project, of your ethos, and consider me a part of your army.
Thank you,
Anthony Hayes. Where can people find you? Where should they go on September 30th? Why don't you give us all the links?
Retrogression.io, which you could go to, or you could go to filmcrib.io if you just want to see the film crib. Go to Mintable and hang around there for the 30th and the 1st. You can come to our socials. We've got Telegram, Discord, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those sort of things. And, Matt will drop a link there for it. But come and say hi, and, come and be part of the community, because it's going to be fun.